What is up, everybody? What's up, Kataiba? Richie in the house, Poison Dragons. All right. Try this again. Okay. Sorry, guys. IG being a little bit wonky. All right. I guess I'll try to send a request again. I'm trying to accept yours, Matt, but it's not letting me. I see the jokes. What's up, Dom? What's up, Eternity Comics? No problem, Matt. So if you're unable to join, is it the Wi-Fi thing again? The encryption protection or whatever? Make sure maybe you're on the right Wi-Fi channel. Let's see. Aha!
Here we are.
What's up, Matt?
Hey, Ali, how you doing?
I think they thought we were going to catfish them or something, but you're really here. What's up, Matt? How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. So let me just, a little context, you guys. So this is the Graders Corner on Elite Comics 11. Matt Nelson and the folks at CGC make themselves available about once a month. Last time we were together, we did this awesome live grading session where we actually saw Matt grade books in front of us. That was awesome. So this time we're back and we're going to just, we're going to cover some recent CGC news updates, and then we're going to take audience questions from the community. So, Matt, welcome back. I know that you've been on the convention circle. I saw you at Heroes, and San Diego was just nuts, so I actually don't think I saw you there. But why don't you talk about your experience at the cons?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, Heroes Con was the first time I'd been there, which everyone was surprised to hear that because it's such a great show. It's a great collector's show. It's been going on for a bunch of years. I'm good friends with Sheldon. So we were planning on doing on-site there in 20. He had been wanting us to do that for years, and we finally set it up, and of course COVID hit, so that got derailed. And then so finally this year I got a chance to go. It was amazing because I'd never seen so many comic dealers in one place. So many great books. I think the sales were strong. The city's great. Loved being in that city. It's an amazing place. And then in San Diego right after that. So just got back from that last week. And that was it was interesting because you probably saw this because of the strike in Hollywood. Like none of the people were there. The Hollywood people up in Hall H, and so all those thousands of people that would have been up there normally were down on the floor, and so it was just like wall to wall people the whole weekend. It was just crazy. But the show was great. Just seeing everybody and again, another great city. San Diego's amazing. The weather with the heat going on right now is just nuts. So it's nice to be somewhere where it was actually like the weather was pretty decent.
Yeah. So you guys didn't do on-site grading. I think there was some signature series stuff going on at the show. Anything else that CGC did at the cons that we should point out?
Not really. We were just there like we normally are, same place. Every year we try and do something new with the booth. So this year we had a really great setup. We had monitors and these cabinets and everything. But yeah, we were slammed the whole time, and submissions were real strong. It was great seeing everybody, the collectors, the dealers, new people. Business was booming. So, it's funny. It's a different world when you sit in this office every day, kind of in a bubble, and you only hear about stuff online. And then you go out there to the shows and you see all the collectors and you talk to everybody and you realize, it's a great hobby to be in, and, everybody's having a good time and enjoying themselves. So it's really good to connect with everybody like that and kind of refresh, get your head back in a good space before you go back to week.
That's been my, we went through the pandemic mostly virtually on this channel. And then once that was over, it's just a completely different thing to get out there and actually meet people face to face. It's pretty awesome.
You were out there set up too, right? You were.
We had a booth with Silver Age Comics, Gus from Queens, and just kind of just meeting people the old fashioned way, So
Was Gus there this year? I didn't see him.
Yeah, no, he was my booth mate. That's what I'm saying. It was like San Diego was so crazy we didn't connect, but we were there.
Yeah.
We were there.
Well, at least got to see heroes.
Yeah, next time for sure. So okay, so I experienced this myself lately, but these turn times looking better. Why don't you talk about the turn? You wanted to say something about turn time updates, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've been caught up for a while now. We're continuing to be caught up, and at this point, it's just getting it literally to where the stuff is coming in and going right back out. Within days. So we've kind of brought the teams closer together physically, and so we're not in separate rooms or anything like that. So that's actually helped reduce the lead time in between, but also any kind of books that transfer in between, say, receiving and grading. Historically they receive them, they go in a box somewhere, and then they go to grading later on. Well, now they're just going right to grading, and so it closes that gap. It prevents a lot of things, like orders that are wrong that have to be fixed. There's a lot of back and forth between the teams, so we're able to kind of make sure that things are fixed, and actually some new ideas come out of it as well. So that's exciting. And then we'll continue to do that in the coming months and bring the other departments closer together as well. So we create like a true one-piece flow where the books are just going right through and getting out the door really fast. So yeah, but right now everything's caught up.
Yeah, no, I just got some updates on my submissions, and I was used to them taking longer, so I gotta say it was quick. So that was great. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some community questions. So we put up this post. We asked people to drop some questions on the post, and we give them priority. So we're gonna go through those, and then at the end, time permitting, we're gonna take some other questions from chat. So the first one I got from the post. It's kind of a follow up because we've raised this before. So CGC, any thought to authenticating signatures that weren't witnessed in the future? A lot of people think this would be a game changer in the industry. It's kind of the missing link in some people's views. You want to say anything about that?
Yeah, no, I really want to do that. I noticed that there was a video that I did recently, and I said something wrong in the video. It was pointed out to me by Mark Haspel after it posted. It said, I said signature verification. I used the word verification mistakenly. I meant to say signature series. And so I noticed later on there were some posts made that were, I guess, assuming that we were starting that. So there was a number of comments about that. But it brought to light that, clearly, as you said, that's a missing link. That's something that a lot of people want. I've expressed in the past our concerns about going in that direction just because of the fear of getting it wrong, verifying a signature that's not real or vice versa. And so that's something we're going to continue to explore because, yeah, it's clearly something people really want. And if we can find a company that we can trust and a way to navigate through that efficiently, then it's something I'd like to implement at some point in the future.
Okay, that sounds like the thoughts are happening, guys. We'll see what happens, but they're thinking about it.
Yeah.
So here's something I want to show and tell. So we didn't get to this last time, but I'm like a big fan of the brand new magazine slabs. You guys, I don't know if you guys have gotten any of these in. They're sturdy. They look like jumbo slabs, like in a good way. Like they don't have that flimsy piece of paper. They don't creak. They're like, you could probably knock someone out of these. Why don't you tell us about these new holders? These magazines, they're making me want to grade all kinds of magazines again, including my favorite Turtles 1. So I got this in a new slab as well. It looks sharp.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, we followed the same design as the comic holder that we released in 2016. So yeah, same the same angles, the same edges, the concept with the platform from the label. Yeah, it's pretty much a duplicate of that, but obviously larger. We had, and obviously with that design, it solves a lot of the issues that were present with the magazine holder before and the comic holder before, which was, that it gives that rigidity with those angles in the edges. And so you got it really tight. And of course, it's like super clear, and the platform allows the label to lay flat, so it's not all, wavy in there. And obviously we got rid of the sticker on top, the top label, so that's encased in the holder as well. Took the frosting off the sides. And we had the really large giant mag holder that we didn't use very often, but we found it was just not sturdy enough. It wasn't safe for all the things that we're putting in there. So we phased that out. And yeah, we have this one left, and it fits just about most things, just almost everything. There's always something that doesn't fit, comics or mags or anything, but I think we're able to get just about everything in there that people want in there.
So it's sturdy, it's heavy duty, it looks clear. Is it like a clearer plastic than the old one, or?
Yeah. We went with the same plastic that we use for the comic holders, and yes, they are clear, crystal clear as we call it, and yeah, and I think it's a little thicker too. So yeah, definitely sturdy. Got a little weight to them, as you see. You can knock somebody out with that thing. So
yeah, no, they're heavy. In a good way. All right, so then the next thing somebody asked about, and this one hits close to home, but international books. A lot of people, there's a lot more interest in international books lately. Somebody asked, is there a resource of identifiers or publisher information about international comics that CGC will grade? Is there certain, like if you're looking around and you want to get international books, can we just, if it's assuming it's like legit, will CGC grade all of them or just some of them? What's the criteria there?
I mean, we'll grade all of them. There's anything that obviously we'll talk about the bootleg in a minute, but yeah, there is no guide, and that's the hardest part about this part of the market is unlike U.S. comics, we have the Overstreet. Even pulps, we've got, several pulp resources for that, sports cards, there's all these other collectibles that have an established price guide or some kind of, research material that you can use that kind of encompasses everything. There's never been anything to date that's been written like that for international comics. Now, there's books that have been written about, comics from Mexico or comics from Germany or Sweden, but not that encompass everything. And so, obviously we're getting everything thrown at us. And as long as it's a legit comic book, we'll grade it. And oftentimes, we're getting something in that we've never seen before. And so it's very labor intensive in terms of the research, but we have a great research team in place. And obviously we got a foothold now with all the stuff that we've been doing the past couple of years. So we're building this database, and it's really helping us kind of fill in the pieces at this point with a lot of different publishers and companies. But I still sense that there's a lot of stuff out there that we haven't seen yet. A lot of people, probably a lot of collectors never seen yet. Stuff still surfacing. But I know Rob Wrong, who's been working with us on the forum, he plans to put something together, some kind of research guide or a price guide. So, and he has the visibility to be able to do that. But, in the meantime, we just have to, take it one book at a time, literally. But and, values too, it's interesting, same thing. You don't have a price guide or a benchmark or even a historical market on this stuff. I mean, you've obviously got these groups on Facebook. You've got people in groups that have been collecting this for a while, and they trade amongst themselves. And some stuff turns up on eBay or online, but again, it's piecemeal, and a lot of it's never been graded before. So you don't have these established like a census or that show how many copies exist or in what grade. So these are all things that we're building towards now. But I think valuation is still a ways off because there's been so few sales, and that's what's interesting about all the books we've graded the past 2 years. There really hasn't been, by comparison, a lot of stuff that's come out for sale. So I still think it's really early to tell what things are worth, and part of that is not knowing how many copies exist and what if I have an Ado Spider-Man from Sweden, what's number one, what is that, how many other copies are there out there? So that I think that's part of the challenge of going forward for collectors is figuring out what to pay. But just like everything else, it'll happen on its own. People will pay price. More stuff will sell, and there'll be some. Like GP Analysis reports that. A lot of those online sources. So at some point, I think it'll come together, and there'll be a much better picture for people to see that'll help guide them through collecting international comics.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have your hands full. So I don't want to make this about me, but let's just say, just be careful, guys. I recently picked up some international books, just a couple of them, and they looked awesome. Did they look funky? Yeah, because they weren't the U.S. version. and they were a different size, but they weren't the U.S. version. So I bought them, and turns out they were bootleg, so that sucked. But so just caution you guys, if you're venturing out into international waters, there are bootlegs overseas, so just beware. All
Yeah,
right. So
yeah. I think that in your particular case, the paper, it was kind of Xeroxed,
yeah,
so like the original, we've seen the originals, though I think it was 11's Batman.
yeah,
And yeah, the original from the 70's has the traditional pulp paper, and this particular one just basically somebody Xeroxed it. I mean, but that's how we tell. We'd actually been forewarned about those when we started back in the day, so luckily we avoided that pitfall. But that's one of the challenges collecting these.
I mean, I saw the pages and they didn't look high quality, but then again, it wasn't the U.S. version, so I didn't know what the real one's supposed to look like. So I think that I only bring that up because I think that was the essence of that question, is like how, and the answer is, well, we gotta keep doing research and just understand these things better. And poor CGC, you guys actually are being asked to verify all of them anywhere at any time.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's definitely, when we opened, in 2000, the graders were people who obviously were very, very well versed in comics. Or U.S. versions have been collecting them for many years, and so you can walk in knowing what you're doing, and or what to expect, what to see. But with these things, it's you start from the ground up, So, but I mean, luckily most of them were printed, in at least the ones that are printed in the 80's back. They look like regular comics. I mean, sometimes the paper quality is different, but you can tell. You can just tell something that's old and aged and has older paper versus something that was run off of a machine just fairly recently. And then the newer comics, the newer international editions are easier because they're closer to the original printings or the American printings, and we're familiar with those. So it's not 99% of the time it's okay, but yeah, every once in a while you get stung with something like that.
Happens. All right, so just be smart, guys. Be careful. Okay, so here's the question that keeps coming up, and it's still. Let's try this. I know there's so much complexity to it, but in layman's terms, simple terms, maybe it's not the full, complete answer, but what is the difference between restoration and conservation?
Okay. Yeah, I think we might have covered this once before.
Yeah, but people are still asking, and
Yeah.
I just want to kind of get at least the general layperson answer correct.
Sure.
Or clear.
And by the way, all this is covered in detail, in depth, in the grading guide. I know you've done a great job starting the show with the book. When you're not, that's fine. For those of you who don't know, we put a guide out. We put our official grading guide out last October, so you can buy a copy on the CGC website. On the main page at the bottom, I link to it. But yeah, there's chapters on our category, specifically conservation and restoration. So, but in a nutshell, so restoration involves, I think it's 11 or 12 enhancements. And it could be professional enhancements, it could be amateur enhancements, and it runs the gamut from, color touch, glue repairs, rice paper repairs, cleaning, staple replacement, all that kind of stuff. Anything that's done to alter or repair a book to return it to its original state, or at least to stabilize it. So that's the gamut of restoration. Now, conservation is a subset of those 12 enhancements. It's only some of the enhancements, and so the two criteria is that it has to be professional in nature. So no, glue, nothing that's going to be amateur, that we would consider amateur and give it like a C rating to. And the other thing is that it can't be an aesthetic enhancement, which is pretty much color type. So if you take those out, pretty much what's left are things that stabilize the book, and that's the whole point about conservation, is you're conserving the book. You're protecting it for the future, and you're kind of stabilizing it, bringing it back together. So things like tears, split spines, attached covers or pages, these are things that could compromise the integrity of the book, and so conservation puts that back together. So tear seals, spine split seals, reinforcement. If you have rusty staples, you put clean staples in, that's conservation. And then, of course, the big one is leaf casting. So leaf casting, it's been around now for a while, but it's fairly new. I mean, it came out about 15 years ago. And so we classify that, we put that into conservation as well, because it really truly stabilizes the book, especially when you have a book that's in pieces, you know. And we've got, you know, there's some guys out there that have done an amazing job with leaf casting, where they've had a book in like 8 or 10 pieces, the covers and, you know, shredded, and they're able to piece it all back together. So it's really cool, and I think it really, you know, it helps preserve the book, and you know, they leave the color touch step off, which actually saves a lot of time and money, time for the restorer and money for the person that's submitted the book. So conservation is a really nice middle ground to allow books to be preserved for the future at a lower cost, usually get a higher grade result as well. And they go into the conserve label, which is a blue label with a silver strip. And so again, the label falls in between the purple and the blue, and some people love that. So it actually, you know, I've seen conserved books sell for more than restored books, and obviously usually not as much as unrestored books, but they certainly, you know, oftentimes bring more. So it's a good compromise for the books and for the market and for the customer, for everybody. So that in a nutshell is what conservation is and how we categorize it.
So is there like this, so because somebody said, oh, the difference is, well, all the things you said, but is it true that the conservation techniques can all be removed at a later time? Is that true, or?
Most of it, yeah. There's a couple things that can't, like for instance, staples place.
Mhm.
You know, once the staples are gone, they're gone. You can't get back. You can reverse tear seals, spine split seals, reinforcement, pieces reattached. Leaf casting cleans off. Now the thing with leaf casting though is that usually you have to submerge the cover in water unless you're doing like spot casting. So and typically when you put it in water, you're essentially cleaning it, or at least, you know, introducing one of the steps of cleaning. And so oftentimes, you know, and cleaning is also allowed in conservation as well. So you can take the leaf casting off, but if the process of leaf casting led to the cover being clean, cover cleaning cannot be reversed either. So cover cleaning and staple replacement are probably the two. But, you know, truthfully, if you want a blue label and you have replaced staples, you can just take the staples out. You know, not always the, you know, the best thing to do, but if the book's going to be in the holder, it's preserved inside, you know, it's protected in the holder. It's not like the pages are going to fall out. So, you know, if the book's low grade, and this is true for books that just have replaced staples that people want a blue label on, you can, you know, you take the staples out. Now, if you do that, where the grade's going to cap out at 3.5 or lower, depending on how the rest of the book looks. So be prepared that if you have an 8.0 with replaced staples and you're looking for a blue label, then, you know, expect a pretty dramatic grade drop, and that's obviously not always worth doing. So it's only worth doing on a case-by-case basis.
Right. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Hopefully that gives some clarity to people. I think it does.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is more of like a process question. So, and this might already be addressed. I don't know what, as of this minute, what it looks like, but people use CCS, which is essentially the pressing service through CGC, and then there's CGC grading.
Mm-hmm.
Ever think about a form that lets you just literally say, I want this pressed and cleaned and then graded, just one form, or is it separate forms?
Yeah.
Somebody was offering that suggestion.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure. With the way it is now, it's pretty straightforward. I think we already do something like that, because when you go to the form, the first thing you do is you choose the services you want. Then you start listing the books under those services. So, you know, if you want pressing grading, you click the pressing button, you click the grading button, and then the next step is to start entering all the books that you want that done to. So I think you can do all that in one step. Now, if you want to, you know, press 5 of the books and not press another 5 books, all 10 are going to get graded, then you have to create 2 order forms in that regard. But if you want everything pressed, then yeah, just you know, click the grade, click the press, and list the books and send it in. Yeah, so it is pretty important.
I think so. Like, but I'm also recalling that I don't think it always was that way. I think recently there was some sort of enhancement where it's a lot easier on the web page. And I don't know, recently might be within a year or two. I don't know. I remember when it was there were a lot more forms involved. So
yeah, it's definitely gone through some evolutionary steps for sure. Yeah, the online forms existed now for several years, but we've been improving it constantly. I like where it is now. I think we're getting to that point where there's not much left to improve programming wise. The 6 years, I think we even added 6 years to that as well, because that was paper forms prior. Now, the last step really to me is getting it to a point where you can just scan your book, like with your phone, like you do with a QR code, whether it's the UPC code or just the cover of the book, and you like put your book in front of your phone, and boom, it picks it up and dumps all the data in. That to me would be like the final step, and I'm pretty sure we're working towards something like that because we're making a lot of strides in that area. And so that would be the last step I can only think of that would make it easier. But yeah, I mean, otherwise it seems to be pretty easy. But we're always open for suggestions.
That'd be awesome. All right, so here's a big, and even in chat, I've seen it several times already. A lot of people asking about it. I think these custom labels CGC puts out, I think a lot of people really love them.
Yeah.
So there was a rumor that you might be like letting commissioned artists kind of work with them to do their own kind of custom labels or just more labels in general. Any news or updates, possibilities about custom labels that you want to address right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the custom label is a really cool idea. Obviously, it's taken off. We started with Marvel. It's expanded to other publishers. I know DC is, people itching for DC labels for a long time. We are in talks with them. We've been in talks with them for a while.
That's breaking news. Last time you told us that you wanted to reach DC, and then supposedly everyone here said they were going to email them and bug them. But it sounds like whether or not, whatever. But you're in talks with them.
Oh, well, yeah, and I say that loosely. It's not like we're got a contract about to sign.
Yeah.
Things are moving very, very, very slowly. I'm not. It's something that Britt's working on. Brittany McManus. So she's our a Hit Six series person, so she's spearheading those kind of things. So I don't know how far she's gotten. I think it's probably still a ways off, but we on our end we absolutely want DC custom labels. So really it's a matter of hammering it out with them whenever they're ready. So but yeah, absolutely, we talk to them whenever we can, and in talks, I don't know, whatever you want to call that, but something we hopefully eventually will be able to do. But yeah, as far as all the other custom labels, so yeah, it's really expanded because obviously first it just started off with the publisher labels, and then it moved into now we have custom labels for collections. But to the question, which may apply to both, is can an artist do their own label? And yet the answer is absolutely yes. The only issue is if what they're drawing, if the characters that they're putting on the label are copyrighted. So if someone wants to do like a Ghost Rider label and they want to draw that, that's fine. But we have to work out a deal with Marvel on the licensing of that character. So it can be done. Now, if that creator wants to do their own work, that they own, absolutely. They can certainly, that's easy. There's no red tape there. So in that case, we simply just hammer out a deal, a case by case basis with the creator, and decide, I think there's a minimum number of labels that we have to order, and what the fee is going to be. So those are all details that we can work out. Now, as far as custom labels for collections, this is a fairly new thing. I think we've only done Darren's collection, the Fantastic so far. But we have a couple other labels in the pipeline right now that we're working on. And so that's a kind of a different animal because you're obviously not dealing with licensed characters. Usually they avoid that because that just complicates things. So typically, if you have an amazing collection that we approve to have a custom label designed for, then it's a matter of the owner or the person that that has the collection to design the label themselves. And it could be anything. Again, it has to fall in the parameters of non-copyrighted material. If they want to go down that route, then we have to work out something. But typically, they just have their own concept, and then we produce a minimum number of labels for them. Now, the only difference is that we don't charge the customer a fee for that label. In fact, the labels are only used by that person that owns that collection that's submitting them. So it's a custom label for them, essentially, for their own account. And so the books that they're submitting that get that label have to come from that collection. And so these are all things that we work out with the submitter ahead of time, but they're shouldering that cost. So that's the big difference, is that we're not passing that on to the customer. The owner of the collection that wants the custom label has to pay for those labels. So that's the difference there. But yeah, I think it's an idea that we're going to see develop more over time, and we're going to see more labels come out on these really cool collections that are not pedigrees, but provinces.
I got something to show. 1 second.
Yeah.
So it's on this note we're talking about. just kind of put two and two together. So actually, one of the reasons I missed you at San Diego is because we were actually dropping these. So we had the Neil Adams custom label, which is like, I guess it's similar to what you were saying. This is just, the family controlled this one. These are the personal collection books, but that was a cool label right there. So that's an example of one label you're talking about. So you're opening up so how do people, like the artists, reach out to the Signature Series people for that, or
Yeah, Brittany McManus. Yeah. And Britt's got she's got an open line of communication with, at this point, most of the artists. I mean, we just did Alex Ross. Obviously, we've had Tab McFarlane through here a few times, Jim Leno, everybody, all these, So she's the point person for all that. So if there's any artists or any creators out there who have never spoken to her before, have never touched base with us, and are interested in doing a label like that, then yeah, absolutely, Brittany McManus is the person to talk to, and she can, cover all these details with them to get that label to happen. So I think her contact information, I don't know if it's on the website. I think it's some, but yeah,
she's gonna get bombarded, Matt, and she's gonna don't blame me. No, but Brittany's great. So the email, they can get that on the CGC website, right?
Yeah, I think it's B McManus at collectiblesgroup.com, I think is what it is. But yeah, she's all over social, and she's any Sig Series information out there usually has her contact information in it. So it's not hard to reach. But if anybody, customer service, anybody that needs to get her email for this kind of thing, they certainly can.
Okay, so then the last thing we had from the post itself before we open it up, any update on pulp grading? The pulp people have not forgot about this. They're still waiting. Is there any update?
Yeah. No, I don't know what we spoke about last time, but we're still firm with, the date that I've been giving now, or the time frame, is still the same. We have not pushed it back. Everything looks like it's on track. So, the big hurdle, of course, was the holder, and getting the holder design nailed down, getting the prototypes in, approving those, and finally getting the order put in for the actual holders to be produced. So that's all happened. In fact, the holder part should be arriving here in a few weeks, I believe. So that's now we need time to obviously get the line set up, and testing and all, programming and marketing and grading and all that other stuff set up. But we're in the works of doing that as well. So right now the target launch is going to be unofficially November at the Collector Summit in Dallas.
Nice.
At the show there, yeah. So we figured that's going to be a great launch because there's a great pulp base, collector base there. And obviously Heritage has got they're running pulp, these great pulp auctions right now that it can continue into next year. And so we figured it's more of an intimate setting. So I think it'd be a perfect place to start taking submissions. So, again, unofficial, I hate to say that's definitely going to happen yet. I mean, we're still in July, and, just barring anything that goes wrong between now and then, any kind of snafu you run into, because every time you launch a new vertical, there's always the risk of something getting delayed or something happening that you got to stop and go back. But so far so good. Everything looks good. I mean, I think we're over the hurdles. So very excited. I brought the holder to the prototype to San Diego. I brought it to Heroes, and I brought it to the Windy City Pulp Show. So a few people out there have seen it, and so far the feedback's been great. It's pretty much just it's a CGC holder but deeper. On the outer holder, and then the inner well is really is where the special design comes into play for pulps. So the inner well is designed with the sides angled to protect the overhang, and the best thing is that we don't need to use wedges. We can't use wedges really with this particular design. So all the books are going to be centered, and we've got a whole bunch of different inner well sizes to fit all the different pulps. So I've spent the past couple of years measuring and remeasuring pulps, depths, and dimensions to make sure that we're finding just that perfect threshold for each size, so that they're snug and they're not going to get damaged. So so that's very exciting. And the label, of course, the numbering system, we were numbering them. So this is another twist, and I think we've talked about this before, but pulps are not numbered. They're numbered, but they're with that weird volume issue. It's like, volume, you get up into a run and it's like volume 13, number 6, and it's just, you know, the numbers don't really mean anything, even to the pulp community. You know, it's usually by, you know, publisher, cover artist, or the, you know, the issue with the motif on the cover, whatever. And so we wanted to bring some kind of you know, numbering system to that, because that's what comic collectors really love. You know, they love, you know, we all walk around, know all the key issues in our head by the issue number, and so you know, we're trying to emulate that for pulp. So there's going to be so we've established a numbering system, literally number each run 1 through whatever, in addition to the volume issue number that's already there. So you'll see that on the label. It'll say, you know, Diamond Mystery number you know, 17, and then in parentheses it'll say, like, you know, volume 2 number 5 or whatever, and we'll preserve that as well, because that's still going to be needed when you submit pulps, because obviously people submitting pulps are not going to know what our numbering system is yet, and so they'll, you know, so they'll use the volume issue number to submit the pulps initially. But once the pulps come back to them, the label's going to have the new number on it. So that'll be exciting. So we'll, you know, again, people seem to be very receptive to that too. So that was another exciting twist in that. So yeah, I'm very excited to finally get this off and running. I'm going to throw a big party as soon as this thing's launched. You know, Lord.
What do you think are some of the kind of, you know, the kind of maybe apparent obvious issues that you think people aren't thinking about with, like, pulps? Like somebody just mentioned, I mean, there's so many pages, like, obviously, what do you do? I mean, you got to count all the pages, Matt?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, three concerns are counting pages, trimming, and brittleness. That's like the 3, and the overhang. So I'll say those are the 4. So yeah, the overhang we got taken care of with the holder. My experience, really, you know, I bought a bunch of pulps. There's not that many that are brittle. You know, maybe the percentage is slightly higher than comics, but it's not a problem. You know, it's not like half of them are brittle. Trimming is prevalent, but we're going to blue label those and downgrade for trimming. So we'll still know the label exactly as you do with the comics, but we're just going to downgrade for that. So so that'll take care of, you know, because I mean, technically trimming is missing paper. It's not restorative, you know, and so it's always been, to me personally, I'm like, restoration, you know, it shouldn't be in the restoration category, but it is. You know, that's what we did 23 years ago. So pulps, this is a chance for us to kind of like try something different with that, in particular for a collectible that has a lot of trimming, you know, so we don't want, you know, I mean, all those purple labels to be floating around is not going to help the market. But the other thing, the page count. So it's kind of funny. You look at a pulp and it's like really thick and it's intimidating, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to spend all day counting pages. But truthfully, they're, you know, most of the pulps range in 96 to 128 pages. I think they may go up in the 140s, 150s. That's most of your pulps from like the 30s and the 40s and the early 50s. Now you go back into the, you know, the 20s, like the Tarzan issues, and they're higher. They're closer to 200. But so if you take like a page count that's 128 pages, which is like a typical pulp from the 30s, and that's readable pages. So you cut that in half, that's 64 countable pages. Okay, well, a Golden Age book has 32 countable pages. So you're only talking about twice the size. So, you know, it'll take twice as long to count, but it's not really going to be, you know, 5 times as long or anything like that. And so, you know, and plus we don't have to worry about things like centerfolds and, you know, married parts and all these, you know, a lot of the restoration that you see on comics. You know, you're not going to be worried about the ultra high end of the grade range, the 9.8, 9.9, 10, the 9.6. You know, there's so many complexities in comics that really don't exist in pulps. You know, so I mean, honestly, grading them in some ways are going to be easier, I think. You know, and just dealing with those other issues that you don't see on comics like overhang. So I think we got most of it covered.
All right, that sounds good. So because not everyone's interested in pulps, but there's a lot of people interested in pulps, let's let the audience kind of determine the rest of this. So if you guys got a question for Matt, we've got about 15 minutes left. Why don't you drop it in chat, and then Matt can review the questions that come in from the audience and take some questions on the fly.
Yeah, I took one that I popped up earlier. I haven't been, oh, someone's got 600 pulps ready to go. Fantastic. Yeah, no, we're expecting a deluge of submissions up front, because I know that there's been a lot of new people to the market. So, you know, they're buying these pulps with the intention of getting them graded. So it's going to be interesting to see. You know, I think unlike foreign comics, you're going to see probably a lot of pulps. Well, maybe you won't, but I think you'll see a lot of pulps come out for sale right off the bat. But somebody mentioned spine split, like a fully split spine being with the highest grade. Is that a 1.8? And I think they mentioned seeing a split spine at a 0.5. We don't go that low. I mean, typically if we're going 0.5, there's something else wrong with the book, like a missing page, or maybe it's just in really, really low grade otherwise, and the split really, didn't have much of an effect at that point. So yeah, 1.8. Now if you tape it, it's like a 1.5. So yeah, so there's that one. And then again, any other questions coming in? I'm going back.
Yeah. So somebody was asking overspray. We actually covered that last time. You actually said at some point overspray definitely can be a big factor in the grade, right? It does. I mean, does it matter how much is on there, stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're forgiving on your average amount of spray, which is, particularly on like the 60s books. You've got like a 1-inch wide spray that maybe goes down to the cover, a 1/4 inch or so, maybe front and back cover, front or back cover, maybe the interior pages. We don't typically count off for that. I think even in 9.8 got some books floating around with that amount of spray. Now, 9, 9, and 10, no, because that's where you get into printing defects. But then on the other hand, finding a 60s book in 9.9 is really, really, really hard. So, but yeah, once the spray gets larger, then yeah, it start to have an effect on grade. So, we've seen ones where the whole edge is sprayed and it's bleeding to the cover, or even worse, it's covering 2 or 3 edges, or it's splattered on the front cover. Like Spidey 129, we see that often, where Marvel Spotlight 2, there's certain books that just seem to have it more than others. And yeah, if it affects, if it's, we have, in the grading guide in our grading room, it's covered in the grading in the book, but in the grading room, we actually have parameters in terms of like the width, the depth, the location, the grade otherwise. And so we do have specific parameters on how much we down for that spray. We spray as low as 7.0, 6.0. So I think we've even gone 5.0 on a couple of them where they're just like covered. So it's it certainly does have an effect at some point.
All right. So the other one that keeps getting asked, it's like move over Chat GPT. What about Chat CGC? What's up with AI and grading? Anything in the works on that? Any thoughts?
Yeah. No, I mean, we've pretty much, realized a while back that, AI is never going to replace graders. I don't even think it's going to happen in coins and cards. I mean, never say never. I mean, I think there's a card company out there that's doing AI grading, strictly AI grading. And I don't know what the perception is on that right now. But, comics are just, it's impossible because they're not two-sided. And even if they were, there's things that you really can't pick up from a scan. You have to tilt the book in the raking light to see certain gloss defects, certain stains, so bends. So these are things that just don't show up in a picture because AI usually works off of, a database of millions of images and forms its own opinion from that. So at the best it can suggest a grade. And then you get into like, pages, the interior pages and all that. So, I think AI is really going to be serving us more in terms of like receiving verification and authentication, or even like, recognizing copies that we've seen. So this is, I think it's just to enhance the grading process for us. But when it comes down to actual grading, I don't think the graders are ever going to be replaced. With AI, I think it'll just be an enhancement to their process.
All right, so hold your horses, Skynet. All right, the other thing people have been asking pretty repeatedly was, okay, so tips and tricks. They're at a convention. They're trying to spot some color touch, amateur, professional. Like, what are some tips you can give them on trying to even do that? Like, how would you go about trying to be on the lookout for that?
Yeah, so color touch is the most common restoration found on books. We find it on everything from Golden Age up to, I mean, even new books, believe it or not. It's really easy to put on. The reason people put it on is aesthetics. They hate those little stress lines or creases. They put it on. Even high grade books. Glue repairs are usually for detachments and splits, and you don't get that on high grade books. But high grade books always have little tiny imperfections that people just want to touch up. So very common. The best way to do it is really with the naked eye, you know, or a loop helps a lot. But the thing you want to look out for most is obviously black areas or dark areas of the cover, the spine, particularly on the older books where you have a spine line, the black line for printing, you know, that's the place that most often has color touch, and creases. So, so, you know, if you get a book, particularly like a Hulk 181, you want to check that spine line. You want to check the dark in the bottom corners of the cover. You know, AF-15, of course, has got the logo at the top. I mean, any dark areas. Now, other ways to tell, you know, the most obvious are going to be bleed through. So you open up the cover, you look at the inside cover, and you can see black spots, particularly along the spine or the edges. Now, this is not to be confused. Sometimes there's little printing marks on there as well. But most of the time, you know, if you're seeing those spots, you know, you look at the front cover again, you're like, okay, yeah, color touch. Or, you know, the ink, it shines different when you tilt it in the light, or it's matte. Or another one is that if you have a color break that's white, but then all of a sudden you have another color break next to it that's not white, you know, clearly, you know, you can tell when, you know, do this enough that, you know, certain defects break the paper, and certainly the ink. And so, you know, when you're used to seeing that, and then you go in and see a spot that's black, but you know it should be white, then you look closer and you're like, oh, okay, it's color touch, you know. So, but it's tricky. I mean, there are times where it's really tiny. There are times where it's in a very innocuous location, like but you never see it on the back cover. Sometimes it is every once in a while, or in the middle of the cover, or it's in a color that's not color touch, like yellow. You know, usually when people color touch yellow, they're using like paint, you know, or acrylic. I don't know about a highlighter pen, but something, you know, something that's, you know, blends a little bit easier or better. So it can be tough, you know, the more professional the color touch is, or it's not a color that's often used, it can be tough to find. So, you know, but most of the time it's just a matter of being diligent. It's just a matter of just always having your radar on. So when you're looking at a book, a raw book for the first time, that you just instinctively look for color touch every single time. And if 90%, 95% of the time you're not going to find it, you still need to just look for it. And that's usually it. Usually when people miss it, not because it's super hard to find, it's because they're thinking about looking for it, and there it is. And as soon as they think about it, they're like, oh, there it is. There's a color touch.
A lot of people mentioning like the black light. So black light picks up some of those materials, but not all of them. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Black light does not pick up black color touch, which is the most common color touch. So, you know, it can be useful, particularly for restored books with, like, say, acrylic paint. But when you're talking about tiny little dots in the black on the spine line, or in a crease, something, you know, or even certain other colors, it's not very helpful. So, you know, we just use our eyes, and, you know, we're just aware. And if we see a spot that we're concerned about, we take out the loop and check it, and there you go. And that's how we do it.
All right, that's great. Any others you want to address, Matt? I appreciate your time as always. I know they do as well. There's only so many we can get to. Anything else catching your eye, Matt, before we break?
Not really. Yeah, we let's see. Practices. Yeah. No, we're just trying to forge ahead in this new world. You know, it's you know, obviously things are. I mean, the economy seems to be, you know, wherever the economy is now, it seems kind of all over the place. But comics seem to be holding pretty well. You know, I mean, it seemed like there was a dip in prices, particularly on, well, gosh, I guess on a number of things. But, you know, if you take the giant increase in value that came, you know, over the past year and a half, and then, you know, as it went, and then it came down to where it is now on some stuff, you still extrapolate that the value, there's still a value increase. Extrapolate that over the past few years, it's actually showing like the normal rate of increase that we've seen in comics over the years. So I think for comics, like we had in 08, 09, you had a spike, and then just settled back down again, you know. But, you know, comics didn't drop in value, in my opinion. You know, now, you know, I mean, obviously, if you bought at the peak of the market a year and a half ago, that's a different story for that particular, you know, purchase. But, you know, by and large, you know, the market seems very healthy. You know, again, you know, San Diego was a good indication of that. And, you know, just everything I'm seeing that comes in the grading room, you know, things are still very strong. So yeah, market's going great.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that, yeah, there was this huge increase, and now things seem to be at a different, like, stabilization, but it's definitely in line with the way things were before the pandemic boom craziness. But that's true of so many different parts of the economy, not just comics. So it was a weird time.
Yeah, yeah, very, very. Yeah,
So,
still dealing with its after effects, but but yeah, but yeah, I think maybe Baltimore, but New York for sure. So, again, it's always great to go out and see everybody and meet people. It's still very exciting time. The movies are doing okay, right? They're like, it seems like. Do you feel like like it just seemed like back, prior, like leading up to Avengers Endgame, every movie was just hitting the mark, and they were building a big climax, and then it's like the Avengers Endgame came out, Stan Lee had just passed away, and then COVID hit right after that, and it was just like the closing of an era, and now we're like in this next phase, and you've got obviously a lot more movies coming out, but it seems like they're still doing. I don't know. Do you feel like the movies are doing pretty well? Some of them, or
I think it's just. I mean, I'm a big quality over quantity guy, so I think they just they're putting out, or they were putting out, just too much stuff without. I'd rather get some more quality out there. But I think the market generally agrees. I mean, we've had a few busts now, right? Just people not really getting excited over some of the offerings. So hopefully they rethink that a little bit better and kind of decide, put more thought into what they want to put out.
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly. Got that. And then I'm always wondering about fatigue, just among everybody. But I think the fact that it went so long and so big that it's the whole generation of people that I mean, as old as, I don't know, you're younger than me, but it's like people that they were like 8 years old when the Marvel movies started rolling, and now they're like it's like their entire childhood was all that, and so they that's your next generation of collectors.
You may be older than me, Matt, but I wasn't 8 years old when they came. I'm 41, so.
41, all right. Yeah, yeah. Like, for me, it was just like that the past 10 years, the past 15 years, whatever.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, that's a huge amount
No,
of time.
you're
So
right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
The foundation has been set for the next generation of collectors. So I think even if the people get tired of the movies and things settle down, it's gonna come back. It's gonna take off again at some point in the future with this next generation. So yeah, the damage has been done.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because on our live sales and just meeting with people, several people, they always say like, "Oh, I watched those kids. I watched those movies with my dad when I was a kid," and I'm just like, "Wait, those movies?" It just makes me feel super old. So
I know it sucks.
Yeah. Anyways, Matt. Well, I really appreciate you, and again, shout out to CGC, Matt Nelson. This is the president and primary grader of CGC, Matt Nelson. He makes himself available to us about once a month, even with the craziness of the con. So really appreciate CGC's access. I know the community does as well, Matt. Thank you very much for your time. We'll see you next time, okay?
Thanks for having me on again, Ali. It was a pleasure as always, and look forward to the next one. And I will see you and everybody else at some shows here later this year.
All right. Take care, Matt. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.